activated. Your weekly football fix kicks off now.
You can follow the LFC Total Red Football Podcast on X, Facebook, YouTube and TikTok.
Episode 8 of the LFC Total Red Football Podcast with myself, Kings. Joining me tonight, we've got Tom and we've got Neil. First off, I'll come to you, Tom. You okay?
Yeah, I'll go, mate, yeah. Already missing the Reds, but yeah. Yeah, no, all good.
You've already got withdrawal symptoms?
Yeah. And I had first weekend, not footy, don't know what to do with myself, but yeah.
Neil, how about you? How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. A bit like Tom, I was I was at loose end at the weekend. I wasn't really sure what to do with myself, so I've had to sit there and I've trying to get into the cricket and other things that are going on. So yeah, it felt like a big void. Right. It did feel like a big void. So, but I think the transfer activity is probably going to keep us busy.
Of course, yeah. And we will talk about that tonight. We are going to talk about the LFC parade, obviously. We're going to talk about Florian Wirtz, Frimpong arriving, and Kelleher leaving potentially. So we've got a lot to get through. But I mean, I will stick with that, to be honest. You know, I suppose, Tom, coming back to you, the fact that we were also built up for this celebration because we knew we were going to win the league, and then it's literally just stopped now. It's like, and I suppose it is a bit hard, you know, for any football fan. I suppose you have all the excitement. If we'd have been 4th or 5th, and knowing that we were kind of maybe qualified for some European competition, etc., you kind of like when the season finishes, you're like, well, it wasn't that good, I suppose. But because we've had a few months knowing it's like we are the league champions, we are going to have a parade, etc., etc. When it does finally just stop, it's like we said, it's like withdrawal symptoms, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it was. But yeah, it was a great day. To be fair, obviously spoiled a bit by what happened, but I think it's important not to let evil kind of take over in a way. You know, I think it's important to think of the good part of the day, which record-breaking numbers, just a big celebration in the city, which it'll live long in the memory for the good parts of the day. So yeah, I think it is important just to not let them kind of win. It was a great day, and unfortunate some lunatic had to spoil it a little bit, but yeah, as I said, great day. Apart from that.
Yeah, obviously I'll address that now then, I suppose, is we all know what happened at the end of this parade with the horrific attack, you know, that happened, you know, on driving into fans. It was disgusting at the end of the day, and there's no getting around that. And I know they've got somebody in custody, and the law's got to take its course, and hopefully, you know, they get the maximum sentence. And we've got to look at it, I suppose, Neil, and say, you know, especially everybody that was injured. And I've read today it's gone up. Is it about 109 or something like that was injured now?
Yeah, I think
some obviously less than others. Yeah. But, you know, we've got to wish everybody a full, speedy recovery. And unfortunately, psychologically, it's going to take time for people to get over this. You know, even people that didn't get injured. You just witnessed everything. It was horrific. But at the same time, it's like everybody is still alive, and that's thankful. And somebody is in custody for it. So it's kind of like, let's everything take its course now, and hopefully everything can settle back down to maybe how it used to be a little bit. And then people, even who are involved in that, can still look back and say, right, Liverpool did win the league. This happened afterwards. It was terrible, but we've got to move on in life. And it's not as simple as that sometimes, but you know the kind of thing I mean, do you, Neil?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think it's terrible what happened, and thoughts go out to everyone. As you said, the number's gone up to 109 people, but there's probably a lot more people, as you say, that have been impacted, that were in the surrounding areas. You know, even as someone who was at the parade and heard about it, you know, it's still very difficult to get my head around. So yeah, obviously, most important thing is those injured people managed to recover fully. I think there's still 4 people in hospital. So obviously wish them well in their recovery. Hopefully the fact that we have won the Premier League number 20 will act as some kind of positive thought for them on what was a pretty horrific experience.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we were going to be on air last Tuesday, straight after the parade, maybe share some pictures of it, obviously our own experiences, but we decided not to do that out of respect for what had happened. So that's why we're only now back on air. Just looking at the parade itself, so I'm assuming that both of you attended that. Tom, did you make your way up for this to the parade?
Yeah. Like bottom of Islington, which was actually a really good spec to be fair. Saw them like that close up and saw them like for a while as well because they stopped like at the lights at the bottom. So yeah, we had a great spec. Although it was a pretty terrible day weather-wise, it didn't seem to bring anyone's mood down. So yeah, all I could say is before the lunatic got involved, I had a great day, and I think the 1.5 million that were there also did. So yeah, it's what it's all about. You gotta.
What time did you start queuing up then? Or waiting?
I didn't actually get there till quite late. Didn't get there till about 4:30.
Oh wow!
Because I had a bit of a sore head from Sunday night, so I had to drag myself out of bed. I didn't get there till about 4:30. Then we got off about 5:30. Luckily, we were going to go to the Strand, but luckily decided not to. Really there for about an hour, but loved every minute of when I was there, to be honest.
I got to be honest, I went to Allerton Maze, Queen's Drive, roughly where it was starting. And when I went a few years ago for the Champions League parade, and what did they estimate then? I don't know, about 750,000 or something like that. We got there, we were like 2 or 3 just around. There was hardly anybody there. And gradually it built up till it was absolutely, packed. So I was like, yeah, okay, no problem. We'll drive up, similar kind of time this time. Get there, absolutely rammed, nowhere to park whatsoever. I was like, oh, completely underestimated this one. Managed to find some parking, walked back to Allerton Maze and crossed over the road, and there was a small gap. And a group of lads said, oh, you can come by here if you want. So we ended up in this particular spot. Decent view, to be fair. Like you say, the weather wasn't the best, but it did ease off just before the buses came along. The guys I was standing next to, they'd come from Bradford, I think it was, and they'd been there since 10:30 in the morning at that spot where they were standing. It was like, wow. We all know it didn't start till like 2:30. You had a sense when it was eventually coming to around the corner for you because the helicopter started circling around and more camera people just seemed to appear all of a sudden. So you knew it was getting close. I suppose, what is it? Like for me standing there, it was probably a 5-minute thing, 3 buses going past, trophies, cameras. Everybody's got their camera phones out nowadays. And that was it. They'd gone again. It took me well over an hour to get out that area. It was absolutely chock-a-block. But we can all say we were part of this parade. And it was a fantastic achievement, to get the Premier League title over the line. And in a way, it was like a 2-in-1 because of the COVID year. We never had a chance to celebrate then. So it was nice. It was nice to see the lads going past and enjoying themselves. So how was your experience, Neil?
So I'd actually booked a flat for me and my son in Crewe for the weekend.
Okay.
So we travelled up on Saturday, went around the ground and watched the game at a local pub on Sunday. And then I had no problems whatsoever. Trains were quiet coming in and out of Lime Street. Sunday morning, got to the station, 10 o'clock. Couldn't even get on the platform.
Yeah.
And I thought, we'll wait for the train to turn up. Train turned up. It was a 4-carriage train. Doors opened and about 30 people fell off and about 30 people got on. So I was in 2 minds what to do. So I said, right, let's just drive. So the reason I booked a place in Crewe, because I knew I'd be close enough that, if needed to, I could drive in. So I remembered what you'd said about Queen's Drive. So I'd seen people saying about recommending going by the Jolly Miller. I think it's the Jolly Miller pub. So drove up to Queen's Drive, managed to find somewhere to park. Probably walked 3/4 of a mile down towards the pub, and there was a few shops there, an Aldi and a Costa, and we were at the front. So it wasn't like rows of people. And this was about we arrived about 12:30. So we sort of positioned ourselves on the edge of the curb, and we were at the front when the bus came through, which I think came through about 3:30, 4:15. But as you say, it goes really, really, really quickly. So you start seeing the helicopter and you start seeing the police in front of them, and they were still letting cars through until right up close. And they were then started to move them aside, and then they're suddenly there. And I think the first bus wasn't the players, was it?
Yeah, it kind of. I think that threw a few people. That did.
Yeah, it does, and it catches you by surprise. And then next thing, I can see Mo Salah about 3 meters away from me in the top corner of the bus, and you're like, you are there. You're trying to get pictures with your phone. The weather was dingy, so the pictures didn't come out great. And then people started singing Arne Slot, and then they were gone. And then when I look back at my pictures, because I remember seeing Mo, I remember seeing Slot, Verge and Gravenberch, but in the pictures I've got Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards. I think were on that bit. I've got a good picture of Robbo at the back with the trophy. So it was a great experience to be there. My son's only 12 and he loved it. And it was just a really good atmosphere. And then I was so saddened when I got a call on the way home. When I got the news as what had happened, but up till that point, it'd been fantastic.
Yeah, I mean the city has seen large crowds like this for parades. Only for the red half, obviously, it doesn't really happen for the blue half, unfortunately. Got to get that bit in there. So, Tom, you said obviously you got there a bit later on, a bit of a sore head. So, did you go to the game on Sunday against Palace?
Yes, yeah, that was great to be there.
So that's where the party started for you, and then it rolled on. That you just kind of like, well, I had a hangover.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we were planning to just get up and go straight to the parade, but it just didn't end up happening. But yeah, City was absolutely bounced Sunday night, and carried on till Monday morning. So 2-day celebration, and that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. Did you? I'm just going to pick out something from the Palace game, right? I've never seen a double guard of honor. I don't remember seeing one anyway. That's unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of an anomaly. That I don't think I've seen that before. Yeah. But yeah, it made for a good atmosphere and stuff. Just a party atmosphere at the game. So they're always great Palace. They're always great fans. Every time they come up, they never sing any of the same old nonsense. Like they just back the team, and that's all they do. So I've got full respect for Palace, to be honest.
Yeah. Neil, have you seen a double guard of honor before?
I don't think I have. I thought it was really. I was hoping that we would do it because I think they were fully deserving of it. Because I think it was fantastic for Palace to win the FA Cup. They, a couple of really good performances, beat some big clubs along the way. So I was pleased that we did, and I think it added to the atmosphere, as Tom kind of said. I mean, I couldn't get a ticket for the game, but we were in and around the ground.
No, me.
The atmosphere outside as well. So, but yeah, it was nice to see. I think they'll do quite well next season. I think Oliver Glasner's a really good manager, and I think if he stays and they can keep their better players, I think they might have a good run in the Europa.
I think I've said this on a previous episode, and no, I didn't want to lose to Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, but it's nice to actually spread it around a little bit. It's not always the same teams kind of thing. So yes, I'm so glad that Liverpool won the league. That's what we needed. But for Newcastle and Palace to win the respective trophies they did, then I just think let's milled it around a little bit, and there's a few extra names to be put onto these trophies, and I just think it's a nice little thing that's happening. It's a dress rehearsal, obviously now towards the Community Shield at the beginning of August or middle of August, whenever it is. So yeah, I quite like them games. Like like Tom said and yourself, the Palace fans, decent bunch. They come in a party mood because they were quite happy. Liverpool in a party mood. The game, yeah, okay. It was one of them. We spoke on previous episodes. At the end of the day, it's like they've taken their foot well and truly off the gas. Now it's kind of like, well, they didn't need to win. It didn't matter. It would have been nice to finish with the 3 points, but at least Salah scored, equaled the record. So all in all, it was a good day for everybody, I thought. And then, the party could get started then, and I watched that for hours on end. I mean, I don't know. What time did you leave the ground then, Tom? Did you have to be forced out?
Yeah, we're in there for probably best part of an hour after the game. Like, yeah, never get tired of seeing that. Like, so yeah, just try to soak it all up. To be fair.
So I think the difference for me and you, Neil, obviously we had to watch it on the TV, but the LFC TV and Sky and a few other channels, if you subscribe to them, was showing things. But it was a nice atmosphere, it seemed, from my point of view, and it was really good to see the players enjoying themselves finally and lapping up what they'd earned over the season.
Yeah, I mean, the pub I was in, which was fantastic, and it was full of Liverpool supporters, and it was so noisy you couldn't hear the TV. Because there was singing and chanting throughout the game and celebrations afterwards. So, I mean, the celebrations after the Tottenham game I thought were fantastic. And these ones just sort of followed on from that, wasn't it? With the realisation that we'd won the league and we had the trophy. And I think it was very fitting that Alan Hansen presented the trophy to Virgil. The two best centre halves, I think we've been lucky to see at the club. And it was just brilliant to see, everyone enjoyed it. There's some really good. I mean, I've watched it back since on YouTube, but there's some really good bits. Chiesa, when they were singing his song, I thought that was really special. Alisson sitting on the crossbar, so the feel good factor. You just
definitely.
You just can't. You just don't know how it feels until it's there in front of you. And it'll take some time to wear off. And hopefully it won't be the last time that we experience these type of celebrations.
I had a T-shirt as a gift just after they won the league title last time off my brother, and it says Campione across the front, a picture of the Premier League trophy, and very, very small at the bottom, it's got the Roman numerals to say the date. And it's like, but that's really small. But this, yes, I did wear it at the time, but this time I've been able to walk around proud with it, and I put it back on. I was like, this is the first proper time with the Champions T-shirt and the trophy of the picture. I was like, that's what I'm wearing, and nobody's stopping me. So it was a really good feeling, to be fair, and long may that continue. And the only way that can continue is if the team strengthen.
You can follow the LFC Total Red Football Podcast on X, Facebook, YouTube and TikTok.
So we'll move on and we'll talk about, obviously, the comings and goings that seem to be happening now. The transfer window did open yesterday, temporarily. Is it for about 16 days or so because of the Club World Cup with teams? So one of the interesting ones with that is finally, it seems that Real Madrid have been made to pay a little bit of money for Trent, at least, which was nice. They wanted him early to play in this competition. And if the rumour's right, between 8 and 10 million for a free agent. I quite like that. £10 million for a free agent. I can go with that. So at least we get something. So firstly, what's your thoughts on that, Tom? You're at least getting something for him.
Yeah, I mean, 10 mil for 3 weeks. You can't complain about that, can you? I mean, absolutely ludicrous business from Madrid, but yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it. Obviously with Kelleher as well, we've already paid for Frimpong, really, haven't we? So can't complain at all. As I said, crazy from Real Madrid. But yeah, we'll happily take it, no doubt. Yeah.
Neil, are you happy that saga's finally done and dusted and we can move on now?
Yeah, I think we've always done smart business, and I think that's right up there with some of the business that we've done. But I want to draw a line. It's too much. Even the coverage on the final day when we got the trophy.
Yeah.
a lot of it was focused on him. He's gone now. He's not our player. We've got some very interesting players that look like they're going to be coming in, and I think we need to move on and look forward to a Liverpool without Trent Alexander-Arnold, because we haven't seen that for a number of years, really, other than when he's been out injured. So I'm intrigued as to how the team will evolve without him, because there's no doubt, he's been a fantastic player and very important to our success over the years. So I'm looking forward to the next evolution and draw a line under what became a saga.
Yeah. So we'll talk about Frimpong first, and before we talk about Kelleher, then we speculated on the last show that it's probably going to happen as a deal. It's now been confirmed. So what do you think he can add to the side then? Tom, I'll come to you first. He's a different player to Trent. Is he even going to play it right back? Because we've just signed Bradley on a 5-year deal. So has Slot got other plans for him, do you think?
It's gonna be interesting. Obviously, the big plus side to him is the versatility that he offers. He can play right back or further up on the wing. But that also does bring a bit of a question mark as to how we're planning to use him, because I think he's kind of in the middle of the two, isn't he? In terms of like right back, right wing. Obviously, he's playing in a 3 at Leverkusen, isn't he? In that kind of right wing back role. So it's going to be interesting how we're planning to use him. But yeah, I think for the price, 29 mil, he's young. He's he could obviously speak English really well. He's raised in England, wasn't he? He adds a lot of pace to the team as well, which I think we're lacking a little bit. Adds dynamism. So yeah, he ticks loads of boxes. And as I said, for the price, it'd be silly not to, really. So yeah, as I said, it'd be interesting to see how we use him, because there are question marks defensively, but also there's massive upside offensively. So yeah, I can't wait to watch him. To be honest, I think he's one of them. He's going to be really, really exciting player to watch. And yeah, as I said, I think he ticks a lot of boxes, especially for the price that we're getting him.
Yeah, Neil, what's your thoughts on him?
Well, again, talking of smart business, as Tom says, he kind of ticks so many different boxes in terms of the fee and versatility, and the fact that he's homegrown as well. So there's a bit of uncertainty about some of our homegrown players. So I think that's very important. So it's kind of a deal that that seems fairly straightforward, and in that you know what you're getting. How he's going to be used, I'm not sure. Now, I've been listening to something called the Transfer Flow podcast, which is very good and talks a lot about tactics, and they seem to know what they're talking about based on what I've heard over recent weeks from them. And they said nobody outside Liverpool will think that they basically made out that we would be switching to a back three. Which I found quite interesting. I don't think we will, but they were adamant that no one would think anything different with signing Frimpong and with hopefully signing Kirkes, that we wouldn't be switching to anything but a back three. So I don't think we'll switch to a back three. I think he'll be used all down that flank. I think possibly at home against the poorer teams, if they're going to sit back and play a low block, we might use him as fullback, where we're going to have all the ball. And I think he'll be used to cover for Mo in some of the lesser cup competitions, and when he goes to AFCON. But I haven't ruled much out, other than I don't think we'll play a back three. Because that would really surprise me if we did that. But these guys, as I say, they seem to know what they're talking about, and they were like, and they spoke about how it would work, but I don't know.
I don't know what Slot's preference is. I didn't follow him, in the Dutch leagues and everything, so I don't know if he's experimented that way or not. And I suppose it's only when other players come in that we get an idea of maybe, well, actually he's going to change to this or tweak it a different way. I'm not sure. It'd be very interesting to see really where Frimpong does fit in. You briefly mentioned there, that there's still the rumour going on, because it hasn't been confirmed yet, that they're after Milos Kirkes from Bournemouth. It does seem that the deal is going to be done, but Until that happens, of course, we've got Tsimikas and Robertson. Only when it's confirmed, if it is, then we'll be able to speculate if he is going to change to a back three. That would be quite a big change for Liverpool, I think, overall, because I don't think they really play that. They've never played that way.
No, and I don't think we've got enough quality centre halves to play it either. So, as I say, I think that would be a big surprise. I think maybe Kev mentioned during the Champions League final that maybe we're going to start to look to set up a bit like PSG. And if you look at their fullbacks, they've got Hakimi on one side, they've got Nuno Mendes on the other side, and they're popping up all over the place. Yeah. Hakimi, I kept seeing him in the centre forward position. So maybe that's what that's the style of play that we're going to look for. And we'll just have very attacking fullbacks, not for the first time over the last few years, because obviously our fullbacks were our biggest creators for
of course
for so long. But he certainly gives us more options. He's an excellent crosser of the ball, so finding that striker that can convert chances that he creates will also be very important. But yeah, so many pluses to the signing. I'm really looking forward to seeing him play.
As Tom said at the beginning, it says on his passport he was born in Holland, brought up in the UK. I didn't know this. I've said this on this podcast before and many other podcasts. I don't follow a lot of foreign teams, etc. When a player comes in, I'll have to start doing my research then, unless it's a big name. And you think, I've heard his name, blah blah blah. And then I seen his first interview, and I was like, I was expecting this really Dutch sounding player, and he starts chatting. I'm like, that surprised me a little bit. There's no issue whatsoever, but it just wasn't what I was expecting. Seems like a decent bloke. Seems really happy to be at Liverpool. His whole family, I've seen, taking pictures everywhere at the AXA ground and things like this. I really hope for his sake that there isn't been what is classed as a huge amount of money spent on him. And as Tom's already alluded to, really with Kelleher about to leave and the money coming in for Trent, he's pretty much paid already. And we know that the FSG like to do this net spend kind of thing that they do all the time. They spend one way and save the other. So Tom, are you thinking to yourself, it's a good piece of business? The price really, I think, looks like a bargain. If it comes across and he plays like people are saying he's going to and what he can offer, then it really does come down as a bargain, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. When you see the prices going out around, like nowadays, I think 29 mil is an absolute bargain for a player that quality. And like you said, he knows the country, he knows the league. He's will have watched it, growing up, and yeah. As I said, he speaks the language perfectly. He knows some of the lads already. Virgil, Graven, Birkin, Gakpo. So obviously Slot as well, being Dutch. So there's a lot of. I think he's perfectly set up just to come in and hit the ground running. Really, I can't see there being kind of an adjustment period. Where they have to learn the language, culture, etc. I think he's just ready-made to just come in. If we are going to start him, then I think he's just ready to come in there and just make an impact from the off, which is another plus, because obviously normally you need a bedding in period, but I think, as I said, for him, he just comes in, gets going, and hopefully shows what he's all about, which he's done for the last couple of years. He's played a massive part in Leverkusen doing what they did over the last year or two.
The LFC Total Red Football Podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts from. Also available on your smart speaker, or you can watch us on YouTube.
I'll stick with you then, Tom. We mentioned some of the money potentially going against this would be Caoimhin Kelleher leaving to go to Brentford. I've seen a few people on social media looking at it going, we're only getting up to 18 million for him. It's like, he's in the final year of his deal now, isn't he? So we don't want another situation where a player's going to leave for nothing. What do you think, firstly, of the move for him and the kind of money that with add-ons is going to end up being about 18 million-ish, if you believe the reports? What do you think of all that?
Yeah, I think it was inevitable, wasn't it? I think he's probably stayed a year or two longer than he was probably thinking, to be honest. I think that this has been coming for a couple of years now. I think we've known for a year or two he's too good to be a backup goalie. He's sitting on the bench most weeks. You'd think he'd start on most teams in the league, to be honest. I think whenever Alisson drops out, which he often does, you don't really miss him too much, which is a huge credit to Kelleher, really. I think probably count on one hand the amount of time he's let us down over the years. So, yeah, I think he's been absolutely outstanding, been a great servant to the club. He's been a big part in us winning, the domestic cups. So, yeah, wish him all the best. I think Brentford, is a good move for him. It's a club on the up. Great manager. Seems like a really good good kind of setup there. So yeah, I think it's a really good move for him. I think the price could have been a lot better, to be honest. But he has only a year left. But I would have expected more than 12 mil up front, to be honest, for a goalie of his quality. But yeah, it's better than losing him for nothing, I suppose.
Yeah. Neil, obviously we've got Mamardashvili coming in this summer. So he's going to be fighting with Alisson. So it was inevitable, I suppose, like Tom says, that Kelleher was going to seek to move on. Are you surprised he's gone to Brentford? Are you surprised at the price? Or do you think this is kind of fair, where he's ended up or where he's going to?
I'm not surprised he's gone to Brentford. I think we've struck up a decent relationship with them of late. I think last year we had Fabio Carvalho, Sepp Vandenberg, that went that way. I always thought sort of a mid-Premier League table club would be good for him. I know Leeds were linked, and some other clubs as well. I did think the price was low. So originally it was reported as 20 million rising to 25, and that felt about right considering he was going into the last year of his contract. And when you consider, I think Ramsdale had gone to Southampton from Arsenal for 25 rising to 30, but with a lot more first team experience, that sort of felt about right. So it does seem a bit cheap. Now, whether there's anything else behind that other than, or we just wanted to make, it as easy for him to go to a decent club, to thank him for what he's done. Because I think the biggest compliment we can pay to him is that when Alisson was out injured, we were never really worried, were we? When he was coming into deputise. So there's been some theories that we reduced the price so that Bayer Leverkusen could get Mark Flecken from Brentford on the cheap, and I think 10 million euros for Flecken seems quite cheap. It did seem low, but I'm also very pleased that someone that's been such a great servant and a big, someone that's played a big role in the success we've had over the past few years. I just hope it works out for him and it's a good move for him. Brentford does seem, as Tom said, like a very good club to go to. Hopefully Thomas Frank will stay there. I've seen he's been linked with a job in North London, which he shouldn't touch in my opinion. But yeah, I'd have liked to have seen us get more money, but I don't begrudge him if it's giving him the move that he wants.
So we'll probably talk about this in future episodes when he finally comes to the club. But I'll go back to you first, Tom. What about Mamardashvili coming in? Technically, his replacement then. So he's going to fight out. He's going to come in here and think, well, I don't want to be number 2 on the bench. So it's going to be an interesting summer and early part of the season of, kind of who's going to be number 1 for slot now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think he's already said, hasn't he, that, he's not going to come and sit on the bench. Mamardashvili, well, I think you are, mate, but, respectfully, I think you are. But yeah, no, I like his ambition, but yeah, as long as Alisson Becker's, around, then he's not getting in the team, which it just does make me think what's going on. I can only assume Alisson must maybe be off next year. Maybe give him Mamardashvili this year, give him some cup games and the odd league game, so then he's ready to step in next year. That's the only thing I can think. We don't spend 30 or mil, do we, on a keeper to sit on the bench? We just don't do that. So I can only think, as I said, Alisson's off next year. I don't really like it, to be honest. I remember the Raya and Ramsdale stuff, and it was just like every week it'd just go on the bench and it'd show like whoever's on the bench, like, oh, look at his face, look, what's he thinking? Every press conference, Arteta would be asked about it. It's just like, you just don't, as much as it's great to have 2 top goalies, I just don't think it's worth the headache that it brings. especially if Mamardashvili is going to be a bit restless about sitting on the bench, which it sounds like he could be. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting how it plays out. It's, as I said, great to have two top goalies, but I am concerned a little bit of the noise and the media attention it might get, which is just unnecessary, to be honest.
Yeah, Neil, I can see Alisson Becker being number one at the start of the season. I think Slot will say he's earned it. Premier League winner now, or double winner. So I think he's going to start him. But you can see maybe a competition hotting up here.
Now, Mamardashvili is a very good goalkeeper. I remember when he played for Georgia at the Euros, he was unreal. But I think Alisson Becker's the best, and he will he will be number one all season. And if he misses games through injury, we've got a fantastic player to come in. But I can't look beyond Alisson being the number one, and I don't think. If Alisson got injured, Mamardashvili came in and played 10 brilliant games, I still think Slot would go back and say that Alisson was his number one. So,
a bit like Kelleher now. He gets a run of games, but as soon as Alisson's fit, he's back
Alisson's
in.
Done nothing to suggest that he's in decline. He had a few ropey games when he come back from injury, but I think the second half of the season he's been as almost as good as he's ever been. And I think we saw one of the greatest goalkeeper performances I've ever seen against PSG from Alisson. So I think it is a number one, number two situation, and I think the onus will be on Mamardashvili to see whether he's got the patience to wait for Alisson to go. But until he does, I think he will be the number one, and I think he should be the number one because you're going to find it hard to find a goalkeeper that's as good as him.
Fair enough. We shall see in the coming weeks and months how that one plays out. But one of them's going to be disappointed, surely.
What do you think? What do you think? Do you think?
I do feel that Alisson has earned the right, and Slot will stick with him, especially the early part of the season, maybe even all the way up to Christmas, and then when cup competitions start playing a part into things, he'll start off with Mamardashvili and then see how he is, I suppose. The difference is, I suppose, we look at him 3 p.m. till 5 p.m. on a Saturday or whatever. He'll see him every day in training. So he will look at the pair of them and go, well, he can offer this and Alisson can offer that, as they know. And I trust the manager to make the right decision. It would seem harsh to me if he just comes in and literally just starts and Alisson's like on one side, and I don't see that happening. So I do think we'll start with Alisson and he'll get a good run of games and then we'll see from there. But yeah, it is going to be an interesting battle when it finally comes to, there's a choice of two decent goalies after a cup game or an injury or something, and who's he going to put back in the side. So yeah, I'd edge towards Alisson. I know you've just said now he's going to be number one all season. It's like, that's a bold claim.
Well, I think Alisson is elite. I think
he is, yeah.
The Virgil van Dijk of goalkeepers almost. So I think it's going to be very difficult to remove him from the team. He's one of 3 players that I think are immovable. So I remember early 2000s we signed 2 goalkeepers, Jerzy Dudek and Chris Kirkland, and they were signed very much with they're going to battle it out for the number one spot, and whoever played well. I think Dudek started and then Kirkland got in, and it was whoever merited the shirt. I don't feel it doesn't feel the same to me. Maybe Mamardashvili has different ideas, and rightly so. You want them to be ambitious and you want them to be saying, I want that shirt, but I just think Alisson's just so classy that he'll be very difficult to remove. So unless he is going to go, as Tom said, at the end of next season, and this may be the succession planning coming into it, which is great. You need to do that, but
I suppose if he's mentioned anything about moving on quite far in advance, yes, the club will know and they're planning ahead, which is great. I don't want to get to a point where they just go, well, he's left now, and he ended up running down his contract just because he wants to go back to Brazil. I hope there's a bigger contingency plan in, because even if next year we'll get an idea probably during this season, are they going to offer him a new deal? Because if that doesn't seem to be forthcoming, then it could be that's the plan. Just let it run down. He goes while Mamardashvili kind of learns the ropes better, and then they bring in another number 2. So it is going to be an interesting season, in a number of factors, I suppose. As far as I'm concerned, I want him to stay as the number 1 goalie, because personally, I seen him on the bus going past the other day, but I think he's the coolest player at the club. He just oozes coolness, I think. And he's like, and he doesn't do anything in particular. It's just the way, his mannerisms. I don't know what it is. He just comes across as a cool character. So I want him to stay inside just for that.
No, he does come across as a very nice, down to earth kind of person.
Yeah, laid back. Yeah.
Not the normal things that you sometimes associate with goalkeepers being a little bit crazy.
No. Definitely. The other subject I wanted to talk about tonight was, again, transfers. And at this point, it's only speculation. But I was told 3 or 4 weeks ago, you read it in the press, and I was talking to somebody in my family, and I said, there is no way that Liverpool are going to put that much money up for Florian Wirtz from Leverkusen. I was just like, it's not going to happen. They're just not going to do it, because that's, in a way, the kind of thing we got used to. They do spend money. I'm not having to go at FSG at all, but it's a lot of money. And then gradually this story has grown and grown and grown to the point, as usual now, people are tracking planes. They seem to know everything. They're at this training point. They're doing a medical here, etc. This could be a massive, massive story, couldn't it, Tom? It's like this. It's going to break all records for what Liverpool have ever paid out if this happens. And it does seem, after all the noise around Bayern Munich going, we're getting this player, and they really were like set on it, and now it looks like Liverpool come in and just, took the wind from beneath them, and it looks like they're going to sign him. I mean, this could be a massive, massive deal for Liverpool, couldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be a huge, huge statement, especially off the back of winning the league.
Yeah.
I think, last time when we won it, we didn't really strengthen from a position of strength, which, great club should always do. Because, at this point now, we've got the pick of anyone, really, haven't we? I think if we approach someone, I think they're coming. I think without thinking twice.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go back a year or 2 ago, people are probably thinking, I'm not too sure about this. So I think it is really important, to, as I said, to strengthen while we're kind of on top. And you do that by statement signings like this. He's probably the best player in the world in his age group. Sorry, 22 years old. I think in that age group, I think he's probably the best player in the world. So yeah, it's, as I said, it's a massive, massive statement. The money is crazy. I think if you're talking 150 million euros, I think that's too much, to be honest. But I'd like to think we bring that down a little bit. And it's just the Bundesliga factor as well, just because there's been so many flops in the Bundesliga. You think of like Havertz, Sancho, Naby Keita, Werner, like they all had massive reputations, didn't they, come from the Bundesliga? So that is my only concern, like spending that much on a player from the Bundesliga. But we've got to trust the people in charge. They know a lot more about football than us, so we've got to. If they think he's worth that money, then we've got to trust them. But Bellingham cost like 80 mil, didn't he? Sancho was unbelievable at the time. He only cost about 70 odd mil. So when you're talking 120 or whatever, it does seem a bit steep, to be honest. But as I said, they think he's worth the money, and they've been proven right many times before. So I'll trust them on it. And if he does sign, which I'm not getting my hopes up yet, because we've been stung in the past too many times before. So I'm not getting my hopes up too much. But if he does sign, then yeah, regardless of the price, I'll be very, very excited to watch him. He seems like a player who gets you off your seat, which I don't really think we've had too many of those in recent years. So yeah, I'm really, really, if he does sign, I'm really looking forward to watching him next season, because as I said, he just looks a really, really exciting player, which, you never know what he's going to do next. So yeah, really just hope it gets over the line now.
You're listening to the LFC Total Red Football Podcast. Like and subscribe to the LFC Total Red Football Podcast on YouTube.
Following on really from what Tom said there, it's a lot of money that's being speculated about. So it could be up to 150 million euros, which I don't know what's about 125 million pounds or something, somewhere around there. It's like that is one hell of a gamble to pay out on. And then he's 22 years of age. So yes, he's got years ahead of him. I hope we sign him on a 18-year deal, just like Chelsea do these long ones to spread out the money. But I look at the way Salah is, and they're completely different players. Obviously, I'm not saying they're anything similar, but he has the right wing, and he comes in and he cuts in, and then this player could be in the middle, potentially creating an attacking goal. And on the left, at the moment, we've got Diaz and Gakpo, who, even Gakpo cuts in and he comes sometimes in the middle with Diaz, whatever. So this could be a real statement, I suppose, of a mix and match kind of front where they could just kind of drift into each other's places and swap maybe. And that leaves defenders really scratching their head of who they're defending against, doesn't it? So if this happens, this really could make their forward line sensational.
Yeah, there's definitely the option for it to become more fluid than it is currently. Because I think Wirtz has always, primarily he looks like he's going to come in and he's going to play the number 10 role. I think he's quite comfortable from the left-hand side as well. So, and even with Frimpong, are we going to see Salah tuck inside a little bit more as well? So, but there's definitely options for making it more fluid than it currently is. But I think there's a couple of things. One, we need to replace Trent's creativity, and this guy, assuming we get him over the line, will be vital for that. And two, when you put world-class players with world-class players, potentially, you're going to create something special. So I'm all for it. I'm not worried about the price. We used to break the British transfer record back in the 80s and early 90s when we were buying the likes of Peter Beardsley, Kenny Dalglish, going back to 77, 440,000. And then I think the last time...
this man, best player in my eyes, anyway.
And me. And then even, I think the last time we broke it was for Collymore for 8.5 million. So, we're the most successful club in the land. We've just won the league. It is the correct time to put out these statements of intent that we want to go on and dominate. And I have no doubts about this player. I don't think you can find anyone else in his age group that is available for the sort of money that we're playing. I mean, a lot of the youngsters that are highly talented, aren't attainable. He is probably one that is at a premium price, but you're paying for elite world-class talent. So it's a brilliant statement of intent. We are the biggest and most successful club in the land. Our supporters have moaned for years that we haven't been prepared to spend the money. Now I find that they're saying, it could be too much. So that confuses me a little bit. But yeah, it's, we haven't spent a lot. We haven't bought in a starting player for 2 seasons. So there's many things in favour of doing the deal. And I think he'll take us to a different level because I think he's a wonderful player.
I suppose, like Tom said, he hopes it gets over the line, and we're all hoping that. We don't want to sit here after talking about it and get egg on our faces. It does seem that if you look at social media, you normally get a good indication if it's a real story or not, or if it's just something that agents or newspapers are making up just to get maybe a bit more money somewhere else. It does seem to point now that most are saying it's close, or they're going to be having a medical very soon if they haven't already, and it should get over the line once they've ironed out the fine details of it. So I know you said about the price, Tom. If they bring Wirtz in, we've already got Frimpong. We're talking about Kerkez. That's 3 completely fresh players coming in after Slot has had a good 12-month period. Now he's won the league, Nobody expected that, and we've talked about it. You know, fourth would have been great just to get in the Champions League. What he's done in the first season is phenomenal. If he now puts his own stamp on it with 2, 3, 4, 5 players maybe, then hopefully they gel very quickly. And I don't want to sit here and say we're going to dominate the league for X amount of time, but potentially this team could, you know, really spring forward then and make a real good go of it over the next few years, couldn't they?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the foundations are all there. I think City are going to take a year or two to get back to what they were. I don't think they were just solely.
They're going to take a year or two to get back from like the National League once these charges have been proven.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think regardless, I think even if they get away with it, which I think they will, I still think it'll take a year or two for them to, you know, get back to what they were. Because you think of that team like Ederson, Walker, Stones, you know, Bernardo Silva. It's like the spine of the team, and they're all kind of on the way out. So that's not going to be done overnight. As I said, I don't think City will be challenging for the league next year, not to the very end anyway. So I think it then comes down to us and Arsenal, and you know, Arsenal just, you know, they just don't have that kind of winning mentality, do they? You know, every time they kind of, you think this is it with Arsenal, they just flat to deceive, don't they? So I think they are on the cusp of something, but I just think we've got winners in our team that have been there, done it, and they're still absolutely world class. You know, a good few of them in that team. Whereas I don't, maybe Arsenal have 1 or 2 world class players at most. So I would back us to win the league next year. We get these players over the line, because as I said, you've got a mix of the players that have been there, done it, you know, over a number of years now, and then you've got that fresh blood coming in as well. You know, Wirtz is a world-class player. Kelleher's been the best left back in the league last season. We do need to get that striker in, definitely. For me to say confidently that we'll win the league. But yeah, I think if we address that striker along with the ones that look like we're going to get, then yeah, I don't see why we couldn't win it next year and possibly the year after. Just hopefully, you know, Van Dijk and Salah keep, you know, maintain the levels that they're at currently, because obviously the two of them are absolutely pivotal to what we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we've got the perfect mix of youth and experience right now to definitely for the next year or two be right up there, and hopefully win another league and bring number 7 home, because I think I would love to see another European Cup under this group of players. I think they're more than good enough to do it.
So before I go to Neil and we wind down the show, we're looking at potentially Kelleher's on the left, Frimpong on the right, or thereabouts maybe, possibly Wirtz in the middle. Can you pinpoint anywhere else where you say, do you know what, we really should strengthen and get X, another 1 or 2 players? You know, is there anywhere that you think we really need a player there?
As I said, I think striker's the priority. I think even before we got anyone this summer, I think striker was the absolute priority position that we need, because you just can't rely on Jota, and you know, Darwin, I think we've all kind of accepted he's not going to be the answer. So I think a striker is an absolute must. And then yeah, if you get the 3 that look like we're going to get, I think that's the most kind of the priority positions kind of addressed. I think aside from that, probably a centre back, just because Gomez, we just can't rely on him, and then you've got only Kwanzaa as backup, so I think you need a centre back as well. But yeah, as I said, I think the striker is the priority right now. I think if you keep hold of Konate and Kwanzaa, you might be able to get away with no centre back, but I can't see us getting away with Jota up front all year next year. So I think that striker is a must.
Yeah, Neil, obviously I'm going to ask you the same question before we round up for tonight. Is there anywhere else that you think we could strengthen that would really benefit the side? You know, this is our one chance, I suppose, after not spending last year. This is the chance, like you say, to make the statement. They've made extra money in the Champions League. I think it was 96 million. Obviously, winning the league gives you a lot of money. And just in general, they've generated a lot of money this summer and didn't really spend last year. So this is the chance now to really go and make a statement, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I think, as Tom said, I think the next thing has to be a striker. And then probably all the starting priorities positions have been sorted. I would like to see another. Well, I definitely would like to see another centre back, and I think I'd like sort of a ball playing midfielder who's a bit of a also a bit of a tiger in the tackle. And I know that they don't come cheap, and there's not that many around at the moment. I suspect because of the outlay that we're going to have on all the other players that we'll be using Szoboszlai in a deeper role if Wirtz comes in. And he's certainly not the the one to put tackles in front of the back four. But Baccetic may also be given an opportunity pre-season. So I think we may look inwardly for solutions for that. There's been some talk about Adam Walton. I think he looks a really good prospect, a really good player. But it's also going to be big money. So, yeah, so priority positions, I think striker, get that sorted. And then for me, it's a centre-back and then a central midfield player. If we got all of that, then it would be an 11 out of 10 transfer window. But I suspect we won't. And it'll be the midfield probably that we don't.
It's going to be an interesting transfer window, this mini one and the one that opens in a few weeks after that, for the summer. I do feel that the club will bring in a striker. I have no idea who it is because, as you said, finding the right quality for a top team is difficult in itself. But there's a few teams looking for a top striker at the moment. And it's like, so we've got to battle it out with others. I really do hope they do their homework and get the right person who can, help Mo score the goals. And if these signings come off, then it is very exciting times. It's like it could be Liverpool 2.0, and he's only just won the league, in his first season. It's like, wow, this could be massive. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this is going to be the summer that we all rejoice and think, you know what, for years to come, we could potentially do some dominated again in the footballing world. But we shall see. I want to thank both Tom and Neil for taking the time to give us their thoughts and insights tonight on the LFC Total Red Football Podcast. Thank you very much, guys. We'll be back next week. Hopefully by then, Florian Wirtz and maybe Milos Kerkez will have signed, so then we can start speculating on other names instead. But until then, until the news comes out that's been confirmed, we'll leave it as speculation only.
Thanks for listening. Join us next time for more LFC Total Red Football Podcast.